Hello everybody and welcome to another market review. Today I wanted to record for you guys another market review for the end of the week, but also we have NFP and a lot of news, dollar and CAD news coming out in 2 hours. We can see that in 2 hours we'll have Canadian employment change rates. We'll also have the American dollar NFP, right, and unemployment rates. So I wanted to give this breakdown for you guys as quick as possible. I don't know if I'm going to edit this or just going to pop it raw on YouTube, but I just wanted to give you guys an update of how it is that I'm reading the market. So I'll be breaking down pairs, setups that I see coming for the next couple of days, or maybe even for today, depending on what the news announcement give us and how the price reacts to that. And I'm just going to be given a bias overall on the charts, on the price action, what I see happening over the next little bit. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with the DXY. So I want to bring your attention to how price is sitting over here at this support resistance level of 96.5. You can see that the last 3 weeks we had this very strong bearish sell-off on the daily chart. Pretty much ever since we broke out of this, ever since we had this doji candle over here on May 25th, we had this 2 bullish days push to the upside, doji candle showing us deceleration, and then you can see price pretty much just started melting. And then you can see over here we finally reached this support resistance level of 96.5. You can see that before 2 hours before NFP we are kind of rejecting this at this point where we have this low test candle forming, but there's still 10.5 hours in the trading day. So it's going to be interesting to see how this weekly candle closes, how this daily candle closes. But I favored rejection of this area of 96.5 and then a push back to the upside to retest this support over here around 98.3 or even higher to around that daily 50 MA or 99.5 region. Now, keep in mind that we do have very strong bearish momentum on the weekly chart. So what we could potentially see is price reject this candle support, and then next week we might actually have a deceleration candle over here. So that might give us deceleration, maybe double bottoms over here on the daily chart before we get a push to the upside. But what we can also see is that recently the market has been moving in one direction. Pretty much when the week opens, we get a push to the upside, the following week push to the downside, upside, downside. So we could very well just see next week with a bullish push to the upside, which a strong dollar is pretty much what I favor for majority of the dollar pairs. But before I continue, let's just look at the lower time frames. We can see on the lower time frames how clean this support resistance level is. You can see 96.5 support, right? We're at this level again, 96.5. And then like I was saying, the move I'm favoring to the upside over here is going to be 98.5, this kind of support level. You can see that the 4-hour 50 MA is going to move up a little bit as well. But at this point on the 1 hour chart, we just have that 1 hour 50 MA acting as fantastic dynamic resistance. You can see we keep rejecting the 1 hour 50 MA every time we come to it. We also have this downward sloping trend line that price is holding. So in order for us to get this strong bullish push to the upside, we're going to have to break first this downward sloping trend line over here on the 1 hour chart, and then I think we'll be able to see these regions of 98.3 on the daily chart or that daily 50 MA 99.5. So with that bullish dollar bias, let's have a look at the following pairs. So dollar CAD, I'm favoring along from over here. We have this weekly resistance. You can see we have that weekly 50 MA. So it's going to be interesting again to see how that weekly candle closes. On the daily chart, we can see we have this level of 1.35, previous resistance over here. And you can see prices decelerating over here, right? On the lower time frames, this is going to show us a little bit of a wedge. So price potentially getting ready to pop to the upside. And you can see previously we had this break to the downside, price moved sideways, and then a continuing push to the downside. And now we're decelerating over here in this region. So I'm going to be looking with that DXY, remember long bias, I'm going to be looking for price to pull back over here to 1.375, retest this as a lower high, or before continuing lower. That's going to be long-term potentially, but just right now, for the following days, weeks ahead, I'm looking for price to pull back over here to 1.375, or maybe even a little bit higher, daily 50 MA 1.388, right? Retest this previous support as resistance. We can see on the 4-hour chart right now, we have this downward sloping trend line that I was showing. And here's the support we're sitting at, 1.35. You can see prices currently breaking it on the lower time frame, but that's because we're stuck in this wedge right now. So even though price is breaking support at 1.35 on the 4-hour chart, that's perfectly fine, because in order for us to get these low test candles, these rejection candles on the daily chart at support over here, it's going to require the lower time frames to break this intraday support resistance level, give us this wedge before moving to the upside. So I'm fine with price trading below 1.35 right now on the 4-hour chart. And what I'm going to be looking for is a break above, right over here on the 1-hour chart. You can also see we have this wedge, prices being squeezed below this downward sloping trend line, below that 1-hour 50 MA. So what I'm going to be waiting for around NFP is to see if we can get a strong close above this 1-hour 50 MA and downward sloping trend line. And then a push to the upside, pull back that 1-hour 50 MA, and then I'm going to be looking to take this long to the levels that I previously talked about. Now, another possibility is if NFP, if we get, what we could get is we could get a very strong bearish push to the downside, and that could give us a rejection candle. 1, 2, 3. You could potentially get a fourth rejection of this downward sloping trend line. That's going to show us that price is ready potentially to turn to the upside. So even entering a little bit lower could give you better risk to reward. And then the safer trade after that is going to be the break of this downward sloping trend line, 1-hour 50 MA, break and pull back, right? And then, like I said, I'm going to be looking to hold this along to the levels that I mentioned over here on the daily chart. Moving on to dollar yen. Dollar yen, this isn't really something that I'm looking at trading, but this is something that I just want to give you guys my bias on. We can see that the weekly chart, it's still forming. Today we're going to see how this closes, but right now this is kind of unclear price action over here on that weekly chart. But on the daily chart, what I do see is price reaching these highs over here, right? These previous highs over here. So I think what we could potentially get is a pullback from this region to 1.8, as 1.8 is very strong support resistance level. If we did get a break, as we did get a break to the upside, in order for this to continue higher, I think we're going to need to get a pullback to 108, and then continuing to the upside. So kind of short term view, I have price reject this recent high and move to the downside. You can see there's really nothing on the lower time frames right now. Price is just sitting over here at this 4-hour high. And like I said, I'm favoring a move down to the downside to 108, but nothing that fits the strategies that I trade. With dollar Swiss, again, nothing that I'm looking at executing. I have support resistance at 0.955, previous support over here, and I'm favoring a push to the upside, right? But I think there's other interesting pairs to trade rather than dollar Swiss. But you can see we have this support at 0.955, right? And I'm looking for a push to the upside from here. At this point, nothing that fits my strategies. Kiwi dollar, we can see that we have this very strong downward sloping trend line on the monthly chart over here, right? We have this very strong bullish push to the upside. I do think we can continue going up, but depending on, again, what NFP gives us today, I can see that we're sitting at resistance at 0.65, right? We have a very strong break above that weekly 50 MA, but now we're sitting at 0.65 resistance. Again, you can see support, resistance. We have a very strong push to the upside. So I do think we're in need of a pullback. Is there anything that fits my strategies to trade this? Not right now. We can see that we just have this massive push to the upside on Kiwi dollar. Here's that 4-hour chart. You can see our price is sitting at resistance 0.65. Right, we have this high test candle, so we could potentially roll down from over here if we get strong dollar news. All right, strong dollar news would be strong dollar, weak Kiwi, so we'd get a move to the downside. I see potentially 4-hour 50 MA being met. We have this phase line right now on the 1-hour chart. So price is just sitting here. I think we're going to move sideways until NFP comes out. So Kiwi dollar short from this region. I'm going to just continue with the dollar pairs. So pound dollar, we can see that we're sitting at that weekly 50 MA. On the daily chart, it also looks like we're forming these triple tops, 1, 2, 3. Again, look, we're 2 hours before NFP. Looks like we're forming this high test candle at these triple tops. So I do favor a move to the downside, but is there anything that I'm looking at trading? There is nothing really there. On the intradays, you just see 1, 2, 3 triple tops. So I do favor price respecting this resistance and then moving to the downside. On the 1 hour chart, you can see prices creating this high, higher low, higher high, right? Kind of higher low price, just kind of sitting at this intraday support resistance, but we did create this higher high. So we have 1, 2, 3 higher highs being pushed, right? Price could potentially turn down from over here as we have this nice strong resistance. So I favor a move to the downside, but again, nothing that fits my strategy. Euro dollar, this is very interesting. We have this little bit of a zone over here on the weekly chart. You can see the weekly close, rather the weekly open over here, and then the weekly close over here. A little bit of a zone on the weekly chart. Looks like we're going to potentially be respecting it. And again, this works with that dollar long bias, euro short. So you can see we had this little gap over here previously. This is a little bit of a zone that I have drawn in. It looks like we're forming a daily high test candle. Again, remember we have 10 hours till the daily candle close, but it's going to be interesting to see how we close around this region. If we do manage to find resistance over here, I favor a move to the downside, potentially retesting 1.1. We have that daily 50 MA in that region as well. So for a very long time, there weren't very clean setups in the market, but I feel like now, the beginning of June, especially in June, we're going to have a lot of nice setups on some of these pairs and some nice trades to be able to catch. So here's that zone taken from the daily to the lower time frame on the 4 hour chart. You can see how price is struggling to close above that zone that I have drawn in. 1, 2, 3, 4 high test candles, bearish high test candle recently formed, right? So I'm looking for a push to the downside. On the 1 hour chart, there's that zone again. 1, 2, 3, right? We have these higher highs. Price broke these highs, potentially taking out stop losses, and we have this nice strong move to the downside. At this point, we are still forming very strong higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. That 1 hour 50 MA is acting as great dynamic support resistance. We also have this upper slope and trend line. So a lot of levels would have to be broken in order for price to retest 1.1. But I do favor a move to the downside. At this point, there's still nothing that fits my strategy, but I'll be waiting to see how this daily candle closes, right? If we're able to decelerate in that region, and then how we're going to break out of this zone, and then potentially come in for a retest of that 1 hour 50 MA. And you can see if we do get a strong bearish close below this upper slope and trend line, below that 1 hour 50 MA, and then we get a pullback to retest what was once support as resistance, then I do favor a move to the downside. Next, Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar similarly fits that dollar long bias where we've pretty much pulled back to where we were at the beginning of the year, January 2nd. We're at this level of 0.7. Here we are on the weekly chart. You can see back at that region, but look at the strong bullish engulfing candle. So at this point, we are trading. If we're looking for a short trade, we're trading against very strong bullish momentum, but we have this level of 0.7 that I'm paying attention to on the daily chart. Here we go again. See, we have these potential double tops forming. We have price potentially rejecting this region. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye to see how we close at 0.7 on the daily chart. If we decelerate over here, we can potentially get a high test candle in that region. 4 hour chart, you can see 4 hour chart is respecting that region. We had this again high test candle close over here. 1, 2, 3 pushes to the upside. Price looked like it was stalling over here, right? Potentially could have got caught trying to take a short over here with this high test candle over here at these double tops, but we had that strong round significant level of 0.7 just above, and you can see price perfectly tapped in that region. So we could potentially just be taking out stop losses over here. We could potentially get another push into the upside over here, take out potentially any other stops above 0.7 before we get a push to the downside. And you can see price is kind of just being squeezed over here on the 1 hour chart. So I'll be looking for price to reject this region of 0.7, give me a breakdown, pull back below that 1 hour 50 MA, pull back to that 1 hour 50 MA, and then sell off. So potentially to that 4 hour 50 MA, or even to the kind of next support resistance level. if you want to see how I'm taking these trades, how I'm executing them, as I don't know how often I'll be popping out YouTube videos, if it's going to be once or twice a week, but whenever I am interested in taking a trade, I usually update in TradingView. So follow me in TradingView under Jacob Primich. You can find me there, and I post trade ideas a lot more frequently than I post YouTube videos. So if you want to see if there's any trades I'm taking, how I'm executing them, go follow me over there. TradingView. Usually where you put in the ticker, you would just put in, is it ideas or under person, and then you put in Jacob Primich. Anyways, so those are the dollar pairs that I'm keeping an eye out. Now, in regards to other pairs, just to give you guys a bias of how it is that I'm reading the market, USD CAD, we're sitting at monthly 50 MA support resistance 0.94. We have the strong bullish momentum to the upside. I'm going to be watching to see if price decelerates over here at 0.94. You can see there's really not much on the lower time frames. We have this resistance at 0.94. We have 1, 2, 3 pushes to the upside. Prices creating, taking out all the recent highs, right? But again, I favor a weak Aussie. You can see we have 1, 2, 3 pushes to the upside, still creating higher highs, higher lows. But I would like to see price now break down and pull back from over here. Kind of first profit target area would be that 4-hour 50 MA if we get a potential entry present itself. Aussie Swiss, I talked about this recently, well, rather in the last week's video when I was talking about price sitting over here at 0.644. Price ended up moving to the upside. We've now reached the next support resistance level of 0.67. At this point, you know, I want to see if price decelerates over here at this region. But again, we do have these 2 deceleration candles here previously. I'm going to see how today closes, if again we can respect this region and potentially get a trade to the short side, but there's nothing that fits my strategies in order to trade this right now. 4-hour double tops, high test candles respecting 0.67, favoring a move to the downside. You can see we have this upward sloping trend line. Price gives us 2 rejections so far. It is holding it, so we could potentially get a pullback to this trend line, but nothing that I'm interested in trading in. Just want to share with you my bias. It is the short side. Aussie yen, just like Aussie dollar, we've reached this major support resistance level of 76. Again, we have this very strong bullish momentum to the upside, so we need to see a little bit of deceleration over here before getting a pullback play. So I'm going to keep a close eye to see how the daily candle closes at $76. You can see on the 4-hour chart, still nothing there. Price is creating these higher highs, higher lows, but you can see price is weakening. It's losing steam, right? We got this, compare this massive push over here, and then at that point, we just get these small pushes to the upside. So it does look like Aussie is losing steam. We are potentially ready for a play to the short side. And as well, when I'm going to be breaking down yen pairs, you can see that it looks like yen might be powering up. On the 1-hour chart on Aussie, and you can see we're kind of starting to form this wedge over here, still creating these higher highs, higher lows. Nothing very interesting to trade at this point. You can see it was previous resistance, double tops over here. Price broke to the upside, it was previous resistance, then became support, right before price then moved to the upside. We're getting this 3rd push to the upside. I'm favoring a move to the downside once that happens, however that's going to look, right? Whether a breakdown, I'm going to be looking for potentially a break of this 1-hour 50 MA pullback, right? Potentially even what could happen is we could come back and retest this resistance over here that would turn into support. So then price again falls back, retest this resistance. So this could potentially even be a left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then a move to the downside. So this is definitely on development, keeping an eye out to see how that's going to play out. Aussie yen is definitely interesting. Aussie Kiwi, we can see that we have this weekly downward sloping trend line. Monthly, there's that downward sloping trend line. 1, 2, 3 rejections. 1.083. You can see very nice resistance over here on the monthly chart. On the weekly chart, it looks like we could potentially be closing as this high test candle On the daily chart, we have 1, 2, 3 pushes to the upside, higher highs, higher lows still being formed. But now I do favor a move to the downside. First level 1.066, right? Daily 50 MA around that region. And then price could, if we break that, then I see that weekly 50 MA being retested at 1.054. So weak Aussie Kiwi, that's how I'd be looking at this. At this point, you can see we had these not triple tops, but we had 3 pushes to the upside, 1, 2, 3. If we copy paste this trend line, you can see that we're almost stuck in this, not stuck, but rather we're in this channel at this moment, right? We're still creating these higher highs, higher lows. Price isn't respecting that 4-hour 50 MA. We did previously get a break below that 4-hour 50 MA, below that 1-hour 50 MA, pull back to 0.382 fib, 1-hour 50. But for me, this just wasn't too clean enough in order to take this trade. But at this point, it does look like it's playing out to the downside. Like I said, I do favor a short play to this regions, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago. CAD Swiss bias. We can see that we're approaching this support resistance level of 0.712, right? Previous support over here. Nothing that I'm really interested in trading. Looks like we got this nice doji candle. We got this bearish engulfing candle. So it does look like price is decelerating over here, rejecting this region. So I think we can come down, retest this level of 0.702, or even this daily 50 MA, and this upward sloping trend line, right? Before continuing to move up. So I do favor a short on CAD Swiss rather, but there's nothing there that I'm interested in trading. Nothing that fits my strategy on the lower time frames. CAD Yen is interesting, like I was talking about. Yen strength coming in. You can see that here's the support resistance level of $81. We have that weekly 50 MA, so it's going to be interesting to see how the weekly closes in a couple of hours. Here's that support resistance level of 81. We could potentially close as a high test candle, maybe decelerate. And if that happens, then I'll be looking for potential short play over here to around the support resistance level of 79.1. Let's see if there's anything on the lower time frames. And then at this point, you can see there's that 81. Price did give us this high test candle around that region, and more importantly, I like this 1-hour chart, how we're being squeezed over here in this wedge. 1, 2, 3 again pushes. You can see on the third push we got this bearish engulfing candle right after that. So I'm favoring a push to the downside, and then again, if we can get a break and a retest of that 1-hour 50 MA, right, we'll be getting a head and shoulders formation, kind of left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and potentially a play down to that 4-hour 50 MA. And what I have marked off over here with that arrow would line up with 79.1, I believe. 79.1 would be around over here. So it'd be below that 4-hour 50 MA. So the safest bet would be to that 4-hour 50 MA if we do get a rejection, deceleration in this region. Swiss yen biases to the short side. We have the support resistance level on the weekly chart of 114.4. You can see very good support, resistance on the daily chart. Probably even a little bit lower, but you can see we can bring this over here. It's a little bit, it's definitely a zone. Let's even go 114.2. All right, you can see support, resistance, and potentially closing as a bearish high test candle over here in this region. Nothing yet on the lower time frames, but the 4-hour chart is giving us this nice bearish high test candle at this time. We still have that 1-hour 50 MA, which is acting as dynamic support. We have this upward sloping trend line, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens when price comes over here, right? Do we pull back, make a triangle, break out, or do we break out, pull back to that 1-hour 50 MA, and then continue down? So keeping an eye at this point, bearish bias, but nothing that I want to trade. Euro Aussie, very interesting pair, as we have this major support resistance level at 1.61. We also have this upward sloping trend line over here. Price could potentially close as this bearish low test candle, rejecting 1, 2, 3, 4 times this upward sloping trend line and this weekly major support resistance level, which would give me that bullish bias. You can see on the daily chart we have this bearish engulfing followed by a doji low test candle over here, rejecting 1.61, followed by this bullish candle. right? So it does give me that bias to the upside. For the immediate future, I'd be looking for price to profit targets would be 1.655, right? And then also the next support resistance level around 1.7. But on the weekly chart, this definitely has room to continue going up higher. In case I don't post on YouTube, make sure you follow me on TradingView to keep up to date as to how it is that I'm looking at executing these trades, if they present entries. On the 4-hour chart, we can see that we just started creating this higher high, higher low, higher high, potentially forming a higher low, right? On the 1-hour chart, we have 1.61. That was that support resistance level. Look at this beautiful low test candle. We got this bearish engulfing followed by a low test candle, bullish engulfing candle over here. Price pulled out to the 1-hour 50 MA, formed a higher high, higher low, right? We created a higher high, pulled back to the fib levels over here, right? 0.786 rejected, and now I'm looking for a push to the upside. First level is 0.1655, right? That would be trading through that 4-hour 50 MA, but in my opinion, the higher time frames are very clean, very strong. Next, euro pound, we have major support resistance of 0.9. We can see on the weekly chart, resistance, 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 right? Resistance on the weekly chart, same thing. Last week failed to close above 0.9. We have this high test candle there. On the daily chart, we have these double tops that have formed, and I'm looking for a pullback play now, or a play to the short side rather, potentially reaching 0.887 first, and then the next profit target area would potentially be 0.87, right? On the lower chart, on the lower time frames, what that gives us is we're going to see this head and shoulders formation over here on the far chart. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, right? We have the neckline over here that failed to be broken, but look how nice the support resistance level is of 0.9. We tapped it over here and then fell to the downside, right? We got this higher high, which now looks like it's forming that head and shoulders formation. We got all this deceleration happening over here. Price struggling to close above 0.9, followed by this bearish engulfing candle. So I do favor a move to the downside over here. Now you can see we also have this upwards open trend line right now that price is holding. Now if we get rid of the EMAs, you can see how easy this is to read. Here's the 4-hour chart, right? Head and shoulders formation, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, looking for a move to the downside. 1-hour chart, same thing, left shoulder, right, double tops over here, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, all this deceleration around 0.9. At this point, I think what we could potentially get is have this little bit of support resistance zone up in here. So I think what could happen is price pulls into this area, all right, retest this kind of support resistance zone. If I also look left over, oops, we also go left over here. Right, we can see this is a little bit of a support resistance area. So I'm looking for price to pull up into this region and then give me a strong break through this downward sloping trend, rather upward sloping trend line. And then at that point, I'll be looking for a trade to the short side potentially. Euro yen, we had a very strong bullish move. I was looking at price over here at 115.5, created this higher low over here, and then at that point price exploded to the upside. You can see we have this nice inverted head and shoulders formation, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, right. Price gave us this higher high, higher low. I ended up taking a long trade over here, but I ended up taking profit way too early. Price just ended up exploding to 124. So on the monthly chart, we can see we have the monthly 50 MA. We have this support over here, potentially turning into resistance. We can see we're retesting the back end of this upward sloping trend line. A lot of confluence in this area. So again, monthly 50 MA, this support resistance level of 124, back end of this upward sloping trend line. On the weekly chart, we can see, again, there's that region of 124. Massive bullish move to the upside. We've broken this downward sloping trend line over here. So at this point, I'm looking for a pullback play. As I said, looks like the yen could be powering up. So, and then with that euro weakness, right, this is something that I'm paying attention to. We have this support 124, strong bullish move, no pullback at any point ever since pretty much May 25th. We've just been on this bullish engulfing run, right? Kind of like euro dollar DXY. I said on May 25th, we also had that doji candle, right? We had that doji candle, then dollar fell. Here we had price create that higher high, pulled back for that higher low on May 25th, and we had this massive bullish push to the upside. And now I'm interested to see how we're going to respect, or if we're going to respect 124. So keeping a close eye on that. On the 4-hour chart, you can see how nicely we have this bearish high test candle at 124. Over here previously, price was just creating these higher highs, higher low. We didn't have any significant pullback, right, even to that 4-hour 50 MA. Over here was the only one, and then price just pushed up. The only pullbacks we had was to this high over here and this weak little pullback to retest this previous resistance as support, and then again we pushed up. So keeping a close eye out on this. Nothing there yet. We have this upward sloping trend line, right, but there's nothing to trade there yet. It'll be interesting if maybe we can push back up here and then fall, but keeping a close eye out on euro yen. I do favor a pullback play on that. Euro Kiwi, we have the support at 1.75, lines up with that weekly 50 MA. Here's that support resistance at 1.75. I do favor a push to the upside, right? Potentially retest this level around 1.8. At this point, there's nothing there. You can see how nicely price respects support resistance lines. Euro Kiwi, these levels of 1.825, 1.8, 1.765, 1.75. At this point on the 1-hour chart, you can see that we're kind of just sitting in this zone over here at these lows, these highs. So this will be something I'll come back to once we're able to break above this 1-hour 50 MA, potentially retest this support resistance 1.75, and we start creating higher highs, higher lows. Euro dollar, we talked about pound Aussie. If you look at TradingView, there's been multiple times I've been waiting to play a pullback play on this, but the Aussie has just been so weak, rather so strong, that it's just been pulling pound Aussie down, down, down. We finally hit this next support resistance level of 1.81. You can see on the weekly chart, we have this level over here, right? Resistance, support, resistance. On the daily chart, you can see, again, this support resistance level of 1.81. We have potentially third day where price is going to reject this, hopefully reject this level of 1.81. And then at that point, I'm going to be looking for a pullback play to 1.85. That's kind of the next minor support resistance level over here, or this zone between 0.32 Fibonacci, or then that daily 50 MA 0.9 also lines up with 0.618 daily 50 MA and this support resistance level of 1.9. Nice round number. You can see how bearish this 4-hour chart is. Right, we had this one pullback over here, right, lower high, lower low, lower high, and then this is just a massive move to the downside. Price over here respecting that 4-hour 50 MA as dynamic resistance, and now we're finally looks like finding a little bit of support over here. We have 1, 2, 3 low test candles into this level of 1.0, what was the number? Of 1.81, right, 1.81. Just a little bit higher, but like I was saying on a previous pair on the lower time frames, it's okay if price breaks those support resistance levels, because it needs to break it on the lower time frame in order for the daily, the higher time frames to close as low test, high test candles at those support resistance levels, right? So at this point, price over here kind of just decelerating. Not the nicest of triangles on the 4-hour chart, but on the 1-hour chart, you can see, we do have this 1, 2, 3 kind of rejections over here. So it's going to be interesting if price is either going to move up from over here, right, give us this higher high, higher low, or if potentially we're going to take out these lows over here, potential stop losses below these triple bottoms, and then push to the upside, give us a higher high, higher low, retest, break and retest that 1-hour 50 MA, and then look for a push to the upside. Safest stop profit target is going to be that 4-hour 50 MA. After that, like I said, 1.85, around 0.382 fib, and then the next one 1.9, 0.618 fib, daily 50 MA. You can also see 0.9 would line up with that weekly 50 MA and also this support resistance level over here. Pound yen, similar to like I was saying on other yen pairs where I'm looking at for to power up, we have this weekly 50 MA support resistance at 1.38, seeing if price could potentially decelerate over here. We have this support, right, potentially turn into resistance over here as well. Looking for a little bit of a pullback play. At this point, this is just my bias on this. Nothing there on the lower time frames, right? We're still creating these higher highs, higher lows, but it's going to be interesting to see how price reacts around support resistance 138, and we could potentially get a push to the downside. Pound dollar I talked about. Kiwi CAD, we have support resistance at 0.897. So I'm still looking for this to push up a little bit higher. We have that weekly, rather monthly 50 MA there as well, right? Support resistance. We have this bullish engulfing. Not looking to trade this. Price would have to decelerate. Price would have to decelerate over here in this region before I'd be looking for a move to the downside. QEN, again, you can see it's sitting at nice support resistance. Major push to the upside, bullish engulfing. Finding a little bit of support resistance at 71. I'd like to see a little bit of deceleration happen over here in this area as well, right before I push the downside, a pullback play. We can see the 4-hour chart is very overextended over here. We haven't had a pullback. So looking at 71, if we can potentially find a resistance over here, right? Maybe double tops. At this point, there's nothing there. We have this upward slope trend line, so I'm going to be interested in this once we get a break below that 1 hour 15 MA. If we can get a pullback and then look for potential short trade, and that's going to be that. So gold is sitting right here around 1,700. I think we can still get a little bit of a push to the downside and then back up. But at this point, you can see it's a little bit messy. Not too interested in this. At this point, the pairs that I said that I'm interested the most are the purple ones. The blue ones, I just gave you guys an idea of what it is that I think is going to happen. Rather a biased direction. So at this point, we have NFP coming out in about an hour and a half. So I'm going to export this, upload this on YouTube. Let me know if you guys like this. Subscribe, give me a thumbs up. Yeah, follow me on TradingView under Jacob Primich for trade ideas, how I execute trades, how I manage them. I'll be posting there whether I take anything or not. Again, these trades, I broke down a lot of pairs today. Doesn't mean I'm going to be taking a trade on every single setup. I'm going to be filtering the best setups that present themselves and go from there. So this was a little bit longer, but there is a lot of pairs sitting at major support resistance levels. Comment below if there's anything else you guys want to see from me. If you maybe want to see a Q&A or post some questions, and I'll be responding to anything in the comments below. All right, have yourselves a great day. Trade safe. And let's keep an eye out to see what happens at NFP in 1.5 hours. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.